We've been under imperialist aggression, imperialist assault ever since Christopher Columbus first landed on the island, 1492, and carried out a war of genocide against the original inhabitants, the Taino Arawak people. And later on, the Africans were kidnapped, brought there, and 1503 was the first arrival. But our foremothers and forefathers fought for their freedom, joining with the original inhabitants, the ones who remained, and fought for liberation. By 1791, there was a massive uprising where everybody came together and successfully defeated the French imperialists and proclaimed Haiti as an independent republic. One of the lessons of the Haitian Revolution, 1791, 1804, the republic was proclaimed. Haiti declared itself an independent nation, was that it launched a call to everyone internationally. If you were oppressed, if you were enslaved, people of indigenous origin, African people, to come to Haiti. Haiti declared itself a sanctuary nation and would provide and did provide support for revolutionaries throughout the world. And so many people came to Haiti, among them Simon Bolivar, other revolutionaries from the US, Black revolutionaries, others from the Caribbean, others from Africa, such as Felix Darfour, who came, and they received support for their struggle. Some of them were Greeks, and Haiti supported that struggle. And it's that spirit that happened over 200 years ago that has to continue guiding us in this general movement for liberation as a people. Today in Haiti, we find ourselves, like many places in the world, again being assaulted by these imperialists. What are they in search of? They're in search of mineral resources, valuable things. Instead of having proper trade and respect with people, to deal with people as human beings, their thing is to plunder, to rape, to torture, to rape women, to rape men as well, children, and rape the land because they're after, just like Christopher Columbus, instead of trading in a fair way for what people have and that they may want, they may need. No, it's a matter of coming in and taking over and destroying people in the process. And this is what the struggle is all about. When our brothers and sisters in the US stood up and said no to put an end to this, they were killed, they were jailed, such as Shaka and others, George Jackson and many others. They were jailed. And so this is the ways of the imperialists. And the only way we can stop this is if we unite together and realize that we all are together in this struggle. And how do we put together strategies and tactics and work in unison in order to defeat this, and to increase communication with each other, so that people are aware of each other's struggle, so that when I get to speak somewhere, that I will always talk about political prisoners, not only in the US, but as well as in other countries, and particularly in the US as well. And Steph earlier saluted the victory of Leonard Peltier's release, and I echo that. And so we want to make sure that Shaka and other political prisoners in the US are out of those jails. So I'll stop right here, just to let you know that in Haiti right now, our people are there is a group that the imperialists have put together, and they go by the name of Vivre Ensemble. And it's death squad assassins who are going around killing people in the various neighborhoods of Haiti, community folks, not only in Port-au-Prince and in the West Department, but also in the Artibonite region, which is a very fertile rural area where they grow a lot of the food in Haiti. And so what they've been doing is sheer terrorism, such as snatching babies, killing babies, gang raping women, and also killing men, and burning down their homes, and their attack is against the poor, the impoverished population. Principally because the impoverished population in Haiti has been standing up and saying, hell no, they won't accept their conditions as being mired in poverty, and they are demanding justice and equality. And also because the people have land, and on the land that they live on and they grow their crops, those lands are actually underneath. There are mineral resources. There is gold, there is copper, there is also cobalt, uranium, iridium, also oil. And so instead of dealing fairly with the people who own those lands, what they do is what Christopher Columbus did, which was to exterminate the population. As a matter of fact, one of them did put out a message in 2016, December 2016, stating exactly what is happening right now, announcing that this would be a war against the people. So this is what's going on. So we stand in solidarity with each other. We have to stand in solidarity with each other. For people who may hear that this man named Barbecue, Jimmy Cherizier, nicknamed Barbecue, they are saying that some people are putting the imperialist line that is some kind of revolutionary. Don't believe such lies, because what they do is they use disinformation and lies to keep us confused so that we are not in solidarity with each other. They demonize us, dehumanize us, so that we stay away. Well, I don't know, it's too complicated. No, there's nothing complicated there. It's very clear and simple what's happening in Haiti. Only a disturbed man would be threatening mothers, fathers, and not just threatening them, but bringing death on their communities, burning down their homes. And actually, members of his organization, about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, they took a mother, and I have to say this, a mother and a 2-month-old baby. They wanted her to throw that baby in the fire to burn that baby alive. When she refused, they snatched the baby from her, and they put the baby, they burned the baby alive and forced her to watch it. Well, she lost her mind. And about 2 weeks later, she died from grief. So this is one of the many examples of what they do, the gang rape of women. So we call on your solidarity as we struggle. Again, I bring that to your attention so that you're not deceived by the lies of these imperialists and those people. And so the more we can expose their lies and find common ground so that we can work together to destroy this evil system of imperialism and their assassins that are destroying our lives. Thank you very much, and Brother Shaka, all power to you, all power to the political prisoners, all power to all people who are struggling for justice, equality, freedom, and against imperialism. Thank you.
Thank you, Pierre. And Pierre, I put up the photo on the right is the young woman who Pierre mentioned had recently died after the paramilitary threw her baby into a fire several weeks ago. It's all over Haiti. On the left, the Labossiere movement remains strong, the grassroots people's movement. And as Pierre had mentioned, there's just been relentless massacres that the U.S. has made possible through its interventions in Haiti, and such as the massacre of La Saline, one of the many poor neighborhoods where Labossiere has a strong base that have been hit by these paramilitaries. So we'll return more to this in the dialogue opportunities. But thank you so much, Pierre. Always appreciate you. And hopefully folks are able to communicate now. If you select everyone in the chat, we're working on that, but HaitiSolidarity.net is an excellent source of information. With no further ado, I think we've worked it out for Judy Tologan to be with us, which is an amazing honor. Judy's a long-term activist. Judy, are you there? Can you hear us okay?
Oh, you got me?
Yes, fantastic.
Yeah, no, I've been listening to the beginning of the conference, and I want to thank National Jericho, of course, and Shaka. I'm honored. Seth, all of you. Shaka, thank you so much for inviting me. Absolutely, through all of the technical difficulties, I will be here. That's little as compared to what our comrades, Pierre, myself, Shaka, all of us who are now at this point of the movement, willing, able, have the capacity to glean, to share with you as much wisdom and knowledge as what Shaka's goal is. And my goal is to bring this information into the next generation and do better. So yes, I'm a grandmother. I'm going to speak. Also, I want to introduce myself for the benefit of our person who is online listening with a disability. I'm a grandma. I'm Chumash from California. My homeland is in Santa Barbara County. I'm a California Indian, and I'm Samala. My village is the village of Kalawashak. And my presence here today is in complete solidarity. Intergenerationally, we are, right? Especially with prisoners of war, whom my people were the first in this United States. We're always in solidarity and in prayer for the prisoners of war and our prisoners in the system that has already got us all pretty much locked in. Not all of us. It's a system of incarceration and in between Pierre as well, because we live with the reality that we look at each other and it's a reflection of state-sanctioned atrocities. We are also in a place where we could only look at each other and hold each other strong during a time where colonization has not met its end. And so what we get to see every day has been happening for hundreds of years. And we want to always remind people in the North here of that, because the strength and power of denial has seemed to have captured people so much that we have separated beyond my understanding. Never seen so much separation in all my life. And we are coming from a fight. We're coming from a place of struggle for liberation. Those words are what keep us alive. We don't gentrify words. So liberation is key to why the three of us are here today. So I love my people. I'm 400 miles away from my people, friends out there. I'm in the Northern California, in the, where the Wapo, traditional Wapo and the Michel people are. And they're my relatives. Some of them are my cousins. They're alive to this day. So none of this are relics and none of this is artifacts. Nothing is in the past. We're not analogs. We're living. We're here to teach. And I'm honored to be here today. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Judy.
Mm-hmm.
So our next speaker is Wednesday Jin. Wednesday Jin is a student at DePaul University in Indiana and has been working with the Shaka Shakur Freedom Campaign since the early last summer. He does work with the Korean population in Japan and the Korean Solidarity movement more broadly. And he also is the one who translated Shaka Shakur's latest pamphlet from the Republic of New Africa to Palestine, National Liberation in Context, into Chinese for Black August. So please help me welcome Wednesday.
Yeah, thank you, Derek, for the introduction on that. And I really appreciate Shaka and Seth and all the people invited me to join this conversation. As a college student, my organizing experience and understanding of the struggle is definitely not on the same level with other panelists today, so please correct me if I say something stupid. My experience with imperialism, I'll start with the first question of the prompt. So my experience with imperialism started in my early young age when my grandfather, he's a former member of Chinese Liberation Army, told me all kind of story about how he joined the Chinese liberation struggle and fight another party during the Chinese Civil War, Kuomintang, which was supported by U.S. imperialist power. The U.S. would send all those advanced weapons to them and also support them money-wise to destroy the socialist force in China at that time. However, with all those stories, I remember I don't have a chance to directly experience U.S. imperialism. And then I went to U.S. After that, the more I see, the more I resonate with those stories that my grandfather told me. I see how the universities is exploiting students from different backgrounds, profiting from their identity, and how serious is the racial segregation happen in the school. People live in a certain area, working a certain job, thinking a certain way because the system want them to do that and force them to do so. In the end, and I know that Shaka, the political prisoner like Shaka A has suffered from all this kind of unfair treatment, like beaten by prison guard from white supremacist group, and also being locked down to the hole for no reason. And I see all how those oppressive systems function in the same way in China back in the old day before the Chinese liberation and before the Communist Party coming in. And after that, I get a chance to work with Shaka and Labossiere, and then which makes me practically working on those things actually. And it's really my privilege to work with Shaka and all those people. So basically, the two major struggle I'm against imperialism I'm currently involved and stand solidarity with is the Free Shaka campaign, as Derek has said a little bit about that. I translate some of his work into Chinese to kind of extended his struggle and also the New African struggle to an international level, and also did some groundworks in the last summer. And then another struggle I'm kind of involved in is the Korean in Japan, which is another example that being oppressed by U.S. imperialism power, which at the beginning is the Japanese imperialist power make them forcefully took the Korean people away from their motherland and brought to Japan to do all those labor work and all that. So I've been to Tokyo twice to study with their community about their culture, education, their political standard, and the resilient optimism they show is very beautiful. So during the time I work in those different two struggle, in different places, they have different geopolitical situation. I can always see the connection between the strategy and tactics that imperialism will use to oppress, exploit, and alienate those people. For example, they're always trying to separate, as Judith has said, separate the people from either their family, their community, or from other oppressed group, because they will potentially reduce their power. And I realized those two struggles are fighting the same imperialist enemy. Even to the other struggle, I can see the same thing happen to the Chinese people during Japan invasion, happen in Gaza to the Gaza people, and happen to the Korean people in Japan, to the marginalized group in US, where the imperialist power intended to deny our culture, don't allow us to use our language, separate us and destroy our community, and also don't even allow us to use our name, exploiting our labor power and polluting the environment around us. So about the second question, the prompt. So as I kind of mentioned about a little bit how the capitalism and the imperialism and all those oppressive ideology are always trying to separate the oppressed people into different groups so that we can fight each other and not fighting them. And I can see all those revolutionary group in the past, like the Panther, like the Black Liberation Army, they all realize the importance of sending solidarity with other group. And those connections is never limited in a domestic level. Because you can see the people like Du Bois, Hugh Newton went to China to talk with Mao Zedong about socialist construct in China. And also Mao Zedong wrote about the importance of African American struggle in the U.S. and published that in one of the Chinese newspaper. And you can see also some of the Panther Party member who went to North Korea and talk with Kim Il-sung about how to fight the guerrilla war. So those connections, so that which make them powerful and also like more sustainable. And I feel like at this point, to my generation, there is a potential possibility to lose those kind of connection and solidarity that been built in the past due to the propaganda and demonization of the marginalized group in the U.S. In the U.S. education system and social media. Like those things are penetrating through our daily life, so it's hard to not influenced by those propaganda. So I feel like it is our responsibility in our generation to pick up those things and continue this legacy between like different revolution group in like around the world. But still, I mean, I kind of see that in the Palestine movement. And also, if you don't know, as Shaka has mentioned a little bit about in his intro, he kind of wrote about the imperialist oppression in Gaza and how its connection with U.S. and Mexican oppression in one of his pamphlets. So you will not regret to check that out. So another problem that I noticed and also I personally need to be better about it is how the organizer need to learn to actually communicate with people that are currently experiencing a struggle. Like we cannot always talk about the theory. We cannot always talk about Marx all the time. I feel like that's like a typical issue with Western Marxism, and you cannot just walk to a group that already fighting the struggle in their own way and has that resistant energy going on and said, you're doing this in the wrong way because that doesn't fit into the whatever theory you study. I mean, first of all, I mean, they don't even know you. And secondly, you'd be absolutely stupid to understand people's strategy and tactics using like a dogmatic Marxism. Right. So I feel like, yeah, Judy, you want to say something?
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I on?
Yeah. Good. No, you're good. I think Judy was just saying right on.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
All right. So I feel like the organizer need to communicate with those people strategically. Like you need to treat them as like an actual person, like your friends. So to treat them as a friend, you should ask them how you're doing today, what you eat, like how you been. Not like just strictly talk them about the theory you study and all those things, and then maybe at some point we can find a chance to talk with them about what we think they can do better or other strategy they use to against the imperialist power. So that's basically my part, and yeah, free the land.
Thank you. Stay.
Just one thing is that for people who are participating, we can see your questions. They are being collated. They just aren't appearing in the chat, but the organizers will be able to see them and answer them towards the end of the panel. And as we're going through, I think we should be thinking about what points of unity are sort of like already generating throughout the different speakers. And I very much liked the way that ended is sort of that's a tactical approach to achieving a strategic objective, right? Also a human approach. So next up, we are honored to have Hannah Barakat. Excuse me if that's wrong, but
it's Hannah Barakat. Yeah.
I was going to introduce you with a sentence, but okay. So Hannah is a Lebanese and Palestinian American activist as well as a musician. Although I'm not sure what instruments or what kind of music.
I sing and I play electric guitar and I write hard rock music with Middle Eastern fusion.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I feel honored and also a bit out of place being here with all of you today. I guess I wanted to bring my perspective. I think I've spent a lot of time a little bit naive. I'm Lebanese and I'm American. I'm Palestinian. I have always had my father's side of the family from Lebanon and his situations and his interactions with being a Lebanese immigrating to the United States in the 70s during the Civil War, experiencing severe racism and dealing with transitioning to the United States. And then building a life, and of course, like marrying my mom, who's an Oklahoma American. So it's very, very like juxtaposition for where they both come from, and for me, that also created a very interesting juxtaposition. So it took reaching the past 16 months to completely shatter what I understood as being my reality and understanding the powers that are at play, that are trying to destroy beautiful things for personal gain, which capitalism and imperialism go so hand in hand. It's hard sometimes to not talk about one, not talk about the other. But I'm a part of the Palestinian Youth Movement. I spent a lot of time in Texas with different Palestine solidarity organizations, and each and every step that I took in the past 16 months of the current genocide in Palestine was a step that I systematically thought was the way the system works. And again, like speaking with you all, I feel like it's a little bit like, yes, we all know this already, Hannah, but like for me, it was definitely like each step of protesting in the street, calling your representatives, reaching all the different aspects of our civil society that we are supposed to, and that are, set in place to give us a false sense of security that, oh, when this happens, you can of course reach here and you can of course connect to these people and you can of course get these resources that are going to come and help you, because that's the way the system's built. But the system is really built for itself. And I've learned that in a lot of hard ways. I participated in the University of Texas Palestine encampment for the second day when we were trying to encourage the university to divest from Israel. And again, these are things that my naivete really was shattered yet again, understanding what actually takes place and what actually our government and this society is willing to do to squash anything that is opposing the status quo, making sure everybody stays in line and stays I guess, ignorant enough to not push back. Wednesday, what you touched on so many topics, and I really appreciate it, because it really did ping across the world to show how the United States, the imperialist forces, have been able to reach and put their fingers in every place across the world. And it's really horrifying and really sad to me, because each culture that is being affected by imperialism is, I don't want to say, oh, it's just all beautiful, but there's so many things and natural resources that are being taken away from people, and traditions and history and heritage and things that are, part of our DNA, part of our being, things that our body connects to, is being taken away systematically in different places across the world. And we know who's doing it. And I am learning I'm sorry I'm centering myself so much in saying me, but I don't know how else to express, like, it does show now that we need different tactics than ever before to move forward and to fight imperialism, to fight the capitalist system, to fight what's coming. And yes, we are living in a fascist state. And yes, it's not new, but it's even different now. Every step has been a very different new view of what's to come. But the tactics that have been used prior, technology has changed, surveillance has changed. It's just a completely different world, like, than even just like 5 years ago. I think of like, yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I am realizing that I feel is in a change of tactics and strategy is that we need to come at this from a completely different mindset than we ever have before, which is hard to fathom. But there's so much rapid change in our world right now, and I'm grateful that there are so many different organizations and groups that are coming together and realizing and connecting that this is not just a one place issue. And I think the only way to move forward is to be able to keep connecting to each different group and each different regional player to connect and fight together, because there really is no way to move forward on a one topic issue. It's not just about Palestine. It's not just about Haiti. It's not just about the United States. There's so many different places that we need to connect to, and it seems daunting and it seems like a big task, but it also is very exciting, because the more I reach out with people, the more we get to see those cultures and see those traditions and see those things that are trying to be upheld and trying to be cherished, and we all want to fight for those things together. So I'm really grateful to be here. I'm sorry if I mumbled a little bit, but I'm really grateful for everything that everyone has said so far, and I'm happy to be a part of this with you all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was fantastic. And yeah, I mean, to draw a quick connection between the last two speeches, I mean, the Palestinian people and of course the Lebanese people learned much about digging tunnels from the Koreans, because of they were forced to dig tunnels.
Very true.
So I would like to also acknowledge that we have some other veterans here today with us. There's Susan Rosenberg as well as Dalil Mutakim. So we want to acknowledge their presence, and there'll be time for input. Well, Dalil, of course, is speaking tomorrow, and then there will be time for discussion after our final speaker, who is Javi Mateos Campos, who is a visual artist, an activist, an organizer in Texas, and a member of a Chicano nationalist organization. Is that correct?
It is somehow correct, yes. I study a student group called Mecha, yeah. But I'm a member of the PSL. That's what I'm a member of. I'm an activist and organizer with the PSL.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So again, my name is Javier Mateos Campos. I'm a doctoral candidate at the University of Texas, San Antonio. And I'm also a photographer, activist, and organizer with the PSL, the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And, I want to thank the invitation for being here and, speaking or hearing everybody talk about imperialism, colonialism, and particularly Shaka message about recognizing the forms of internal colonialism. And I wanted to start my participation with a brief history about myself. And as I mentioned, I'm a Mexican first-generation immigrant to this country. I immigrated. My immigration story is a little different because I immigrated as an international college student. I was already in my 20s when I first came to the US. But to make the story short, I ended up losing my student visa. I overstayed, and so life showed me the firsthand account of what does it mean to be an undocumented person in this country and being really starting from zero. And it's a very harsh reality. I'll be very honest with you all. And I was very young. I immediately sought refuge in other immigrant groups that I saw that they were also managing somehow okay navigating these spaces. And one of the groups that really embraced me the most and I felt the most at home and were the Palestinian people, other Palestinian immigrants that had businesses here in Texas. And as a matter of fact, one of my very, very best friends, still to this day, he's from Palestine. And so fast forward this past September in 2023, after much talk, we were able to coordinate, and we went to Palestine, we went to the West Bank, and I really witnessed firsthand what colonial apartheid means. Like, what does it mean to have a two different set of rules for two different people? And it was very impactful. In the picture, we see these signs that they have outside of every single Palestinian village, demonizing and warning Israeli citizens not to enter, right? Flipping completely the script. But I'll tell you something, once you go to the West Bank or anywhere in Palestine to that effect, it takes 5 to 10 minutes for you to realize the realities of what's going on and who is the settler colonial occupying whom. And, I experienced the fear of what does it mean to be stopped at a checkpoint and have a 19, 20-year-old radicalized Israeli armed to the teeth, really having your future and your life in your hands. Me, of course, I was somehow protected with my blue passport, but it wasn't the case for my friends and the family of my friend who, simple things, just like going to pick up a friend from the airport or moving from one town to another. It could be such a difficult thing. They make life for Palestinian people so difficult. I also witnessed I don't know any other word to describe it, but the apocalyptic settler colonialism and how it looks on the West Bank, where you have these kind of like ultra guarded, militarized, sort of fancy Israeli neighborhoods that are visible in every single mountaintop in the West Bank. It is really a reality that oftentimes we live in a fake illusion in the US that, that doesn't really affect me because that will never happen here. But I'll tell you something, it's going to happen in many other places, and that space is not going to save us from some of these realities, which segregated neighborhoods, we have them in the United States. Perhaps we don't have walls, but we have them segregated by poverty, by extreme poverty. A lot of people don't associate that with the image that is portrayed of the United States. And so while we were in the West Bank, and I'll share this story because while I saw this oppression, I've never seen it before, I also saw resistance like I've never saw it before. And I'll share this personal story. We were talking to my friend and my friend's family, and they were sharing a story that they had from a legendary person in their town who 20 years ago was really leading the resistance against the Israeli occupation. And he got arrested for throwing stones to an Israeli military vehicle. And he spent the next 25 years in prison. And when he was finally released, they were telling me that the entire town gathered and they welcomed him with open arms when he was released. But not only did they celebrate his life and what he really meant for the community, but among the entire community, they pitched in and they bought him a house, they bought him a car, trying to make up a little bit for the time that he lost. And so when you see that, you cannot defeat that type of energy. No matter how many planes, how many tanks, you cannot defeat that type of resistance. And so I came back to the United States, and I really wanted to study resistance. I really wanted to study revolutionary spaces. And I'm an education scholar. And so I started really looking into what am I going to do for my own dissertation and for my own career? What areas can I study in education that have that type of resistance or that type of energy? And I ended up finding the MECHA, which is the colectivo that I specialize on. And MECHA is the acronym for El Movimiento Estudiantil Chicano de Aztlán. And MECHA is a legendary student organization that has dedicated to form Chicano activists since the 1960s. And so really MECHA comes with the Chicano movement of the 1960s. And the idea was to create a strong foot of the Chicano community in higher education so that they could transform or reclaim these institutions as spaces for community building and knowledge production. And so in the beginning, MECHA was very successful. It spread like wildfire across college campuses. It emerged as a confederation of previously existing Chicano organizations and really quickly achieved a national structure that became a force to be reckoned with. And how did MECHA achieve such strength and popularity? And I think I'm bringing this up because I'm thinking about what strategies can we learn to enact resistance and anti-imperialism. And so MECHA was, since the beginning, tied down to the establishment of ethnic studies departments across the United States. So even to this day, wherever you see an ethnic studies department, you'll see a MECHA really close by, or ex-mechistas, or people who are very familiar with it. And this created a very specific conjuncture in higher education that is rarely seen in other spaces. Because how is it that MECHA was able to sustain itself as a strong Chicano organization throughout those years? Student organizations, they come and go because the students graduate and students transfer. And so it's very difficult to raise that continuity. But this is what I wanted to share with you all, because they really achieve it by what I have identified as two main themes. So the first one is that MECHA was able to provide a strong connection with the community, with the local community, and at the same time, a connection with broader social justice movements. So it wasn't just a bunch of students that were isolated in the school, but it was more like the barrio was present in school. And so once students were coming into MECHA, they had that connection, direct connection with the social realities and the material inequalities that they were no strangers to. So that's the first thing, that through activism, they had that active connection and that relevant reading of what was happening in their communities. The second way that they did it is that through ethnic studies, as well as through the spaces that MECHA was providing, is that they dedicated largely to the unlearning of history and being able to reclaim their ancestral knowledge. And this ancestral knowledge included a connection with the land. And so MECHA really emerges as a quite anti-imperialist, anti-colonial student organization. And MECHA was very broad. It didn't encompass just one type of activists, but there were sectors that were Chicano nationalism, but there was also a big sector that was Marxist-Leninist as well. As a matter of fact, it was the most popular in Northern California, in the area of Berkeley and its surrounding areas. Yeah, and what these strategies that MECHA was taking place, and I tried to study them through the work of Edward Soya and Henri Lefebvre, who were really trying to theorize about how can we make sites and spaces that are ungovernable for the system, that are completely unpredictable and that can always create terrain towards new grounds for resistance. And so they came up with this concept of third space. And in my assessment, that's what Mecha has been doing. It has been creating third spaces so that students can connect their activism directly to the realities of their communities. But also, what I've seen in my students and in the Mechistas that I work with is that Mecha itself allows them, and this is very important, to identify themselves, to recognize themselves, to situate themselves in the unfolding of history as the carriers of the legacy of the Chicano movement and as the carriers of the resistance of Latino, Latinx people that has been so long erased in this country. And so I see other organizations operating in similar ways, just with different details on it, right? I could make the argument that the PSL acts in a similar way by staying very connected with community, but also providing information and education on Marxist and communist theory. And I'll close this with by saying that what I've noticed with the young Latino Chicano students that I work with is that their experiences in places like Mecha are experiences that the educational system is never going to provide for you. It's too powerful of an energy and of information for it to be delivered in school. So as people that were involved and we want to add to the revolutionary struggle, I think that we have to have this very much into consideration, that we have to craft these spaces for us and for, in this case, our students or our families, our people that we're nearby, because the system as it is never going to give it to you. And fast forwarding, well, Mecha kind of like died down a little bit towards the 2010s. Then there's been a lot of discrepancies recently about the name and the direction of the organization, and the pandemic was very devastating for them. It very much bring operations to a halt, and 2 years in the university, that's a long time because students will come and go. So what I've seen is a new generation of Mechistas, and these are students who haven't heard of Mecha ever up until very recently, but through the legacy that Mecha has left, the students are able to tap into an idea because they learn about Mecha and then they are able to establish their chapter. So I've been able to see how students can just tap into this idea, into a collective idea of resistance that is embodied in Mecha. And they really have worked to liberate themselves. And perhaps this is the path for us as well. Because if we're able to liberate ourselves from the most dangerous prison, I think, that exists, that is the prison of the mind, that is the start for really democratizing access to popular power and the way to move forward, by really creating that class consciousness, that social consciousness that is going to liberate us from the prison of our minds. With that, I'll finish my participation, and all power to all people. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Javi.
Thank you.
So before we get into a little bit of discussion, we did want to open the floor to Susan to see if you would like to make any comments on the topics discussed today or anything in particular. I'll give it a second.
Yeah. And while we're waiting, Javi, I don't know if you saw the chat. Oh, yeah, Susan said no, but thank you. We so much appreciate you being here, Susan Rosenberg. And again, tomorrow, Jaleel Montequin will headline, so please be here tomorrow. But Javi, in the chat, it was put out, if you could suggest a reading list, that would be great,
And one thing I'll be doing is I can collate some resources that have been shared, and we can distribute those afterwards also. And thus, of course, Javi, feel free to respond right now with Edward Soha or any Lefebvre book in particular that. Okay. All right. So right now, Shaka is going to be calling back because he'd like to participate, of course, in the discussion. And we have questions from the audience. We also have questions that were assembled by the organizers of this conference. And let's see him now. Okay. So just hey. All right. Cool. All right. 40%. So just give me a second here. And so yeah, just before opening it up to the I just kind of wanted to like briefly think through, I'm thinking through some of the threads that have like sort of naturally come to emerge through the different panelists, and whoever put it in this order was obviously either very like sort of prescient or I don't know, coincidence, chance played a big role. But I think especially, beginning with, of course, Shaka framing it and around the break in ideological continuity. What we might call the break in ideological continuity, or really the generational gap in the struggle, and the which is clearly like being we saw that being addressed within a matter of hours, and as well as the way that the divide and the conquer have played a role in this, as well as a demonization of the enemy, right? Something that Pierre highlighted, that the enemy is always demonized in a often racist and caricatured way, and how do you break that down? But by doing what Wednesday and Anna were talking about, right? Like people to people exchanges, right? And also going through the motions yourself, right? Because it's one thing to have somebody tell you something. It's another thing to have somebody tell you something and then you go through it and you try it, Okay, write to your congressperson. Okay, now, and especially, something that stuck out, this stood out to me was the remark about how when we look at each other, we should feel a sort of strength. Right? I think that's like, that in terms of breaking the divide and conquer strategy, that is one very, not simple, it's rather complex, but it's one like very poignant way to put it. And then ending with the production of spaces where we can produce and disseminate, and our own knowledges, and the knowledges that have been oppressed and repressed and subjugated, subordinated through violence and other means of absorption. In the case of ethnic studies and other fields in academia. So with that, I think that's the first. We do have Shaka on the line. Shaka, are you there? All right, cool. So I did want to offer Shaka the chance to respond because he was listening to all the presentations. Just if you had any brief remarks.
Yeah, I just want to say that once again, it shows listen to all the speakers and what have you, and them describing their realities and experiences. Once again, it shows the intersectionality of our struggles. It shows that imperialist oppression has no boundaries, it has no borders, it shows the commonality to some extent of our struggles and the resistance to that common oppression. And I think it reinforces all the more why it's critically important for us to organize as a united front. To recognize the strength in numbers and the value of coordinated effort and strategies and tactics.
All right, beautiful. With that, I'm going to pose the first question for any and all panelists, which is, going to start us off on a sense of revolutionary optimism, which is within the U.S. As a country and beyond, what forces do you see as offering the greatest hope for revolutionary change, and why? So again, okay, yeah. You got it.
All right, thank you, Judy. Let's just look at today. The image of full tack, full armed, officers going into homes. Pierre just told a story, atrocity. A few other folks mentioned that type of trooper. Well, it's happening right now in LA, and it's like, it's really the answer is our response. Are we ready? Are we prepared to be responsive, to the psychological, abuse that's coming at us and the aftermath of that? Are we prepared? And we are. We're responding, but it takes a tremendous and a broad-based sort of coalition builder. Now, I'm not going to put building. It takes a builder, someone with a tremendous orientation to solidarity work, to coalition building, to broad-based, movement. And what attracted me as a child back into the fold of my parents, which is, no offense, but it was ideologically and too much theory. It was very disempowering, just as it is today. But the response, the active response that we do today in response to folks that are under fire will tell, and we're good at it. It's the community, comrades. We can sit up in the campus community with campus workers. We're reliant upon the health and the resilience of the community, because they're the ones who know transformative justice. We could sit here and be really disempowered by theory. It's in the practice, and the practice is calling us today, and we're good at it. Take a look. And not in this country necessarily, but worldwide. We have people that are teaching us. Yeah. So there is, and I'm saying this really for Shaka, because this is going to be. I don't have much time with you, comrades. I really. That's why I'm sort of, we responded. We have a space. We have a queer clinician, Spanish, Donna, just had a baby. Couldn't wait for her to come back, and here she is to receive, be the respite. Hear that word? Let's be the respite. That's how I got all my young mentors, for real. 3 semesters now. I'm not even on campus. We speak every week. We organize. That's legacy. We have to speak real now. And that's what Shaka deserves. That's what Pierre deserves. That's what I deserve. Huh? Do it. And we're good at it. We're good at, campaigning. We're good at recruiting. And we're not real good at outreach. Wednesday's hitting it. We're not real good at outreach. When Shaka and myself, Pierre, were very young, we all knew our work areas. And we would cross each other in big rallies. But we knew our work areas, and we would be there together. Okay? That's a level of solidarity and liberation movement that I have not seen in generations now. Well, how do you cultivate it? What are the tactical? Go to the community and cultivate that beautiful community that knows exactly how to respond to emergency crises, settler apocalypse. Huh? That's the revolution right there, and in prisons. You got to pay attention quite a bit. But I'm down for theory because, I'm old enough, did it too, but I think it's disempowering. I think that's what Wednesday's saying. And if you could please, I'm going to play, repeat on Wednesday's presentation right there, because that's the answer, solidarity organized. Broad-based, and take it from lessons from outside this territory. It's very corrupt here. So, as we walk, but that's for you, Shaka, for Pierre and the other vets here, it's happening, and we're organizing and we're responding, because that's what the mujer do. Yeah? We do this and we take them back at the same time.
Thank you. Shaka? Good.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that a little bit, let me just say this. Like, a lot of times, and just speaking generally, Like we've gotten so comfortable over here in America, especially on the left, and we use, and even the younger generation now, they we use words, terminologies, and whatnot, and it becomes somewhat rhetorical. It's like we don't really. I don't think that people really understand sometimes. Like we talk about revolution, talk about arms, talk about armed resistance, we talk about self-defense. Uh, the structural aspect of it, like she was just saying, like taking it beyond just the theory, like what do we mean when we talk about dual power? Do you understand? Do we really communicate the need for the development of infrastructure? You know, we talk about coalition building and what have you, network building. Do we understand like resistance when contradictions really get sharp and we don't have electricity and we don't have running water and when there's no food at the local grocery stores or what have you, you know, and we're trying to get supplies to feed communities and take care of one another, etc. Do we focus on having the networks in place? Understand that can aid and assist in those type of situations. You know, do we have if the January 6th situation with them idiots on the right would have been more coordinated? They say they would have been coordinated throughout the country to attack certain cities or areas that were predominantly comprised of people of color, or say predominantly communities of color, like say in Atlanta, what have you. Who would we have been able to call to assist us? Would we have been prepared? You know, and then we have to start thinking about resistance outside of the parameters of the legality of the state. We cannot allow those that we identify as enemies and oppositions and our oppressors to dictate and define the borders and boundaries in which we must resist in and engage in struggle. So with that being said, part of the United Front is about creating infrastructures and networks to lay the foundation to be able to sustain a resistance, to sustain the build towards a revolution. You know, I just want to make.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. And anybody else want to take this one? You know, the forces that we see. Yeah, Javi.
I'll just add something real quick. I think that the most promising alternative, and perhaps I'm a little biased, but it's Marxism-Leninism. But this is what I'll say. What I think is that, yes, of course, Marxism-Leninism is the most viable option to defeat the capitalist system. But we have to really humble ourselves and place indigenous voices and indigenous people and indigenous knowledge at the forefront of that struggle. And that is because indigenous wisdom is the only worldview that really proposes a completely different relationship with the earth, with the cosmos, with the natural energies of the earth. And so for me, we cannot reinvent society, we cannot reinvent the world unless we really learn from them. Because to be honest, indigenous people are not new to this. They have been doing this for a very, very, very long time. I think Wednesday kind of like mentioned earlier about like, we sometimes as, you know, we read a bunch of Marxist theory and then we go to communities and like, let me tell you about what I read. And then the reality is very different because then, no, you're actually there to learn from them because they've been on the front lines of this resistance for the last 500-600 years. And they have a source of knowledge that goes back thousands of years. There's no comparison to that in our modern world. Not the Marxism, not any other, in my opinion, not any other type of theory that we want to take. Nothing compares to that ancestral legacy of humanity that indigenous peoples have in their blood. Yeah, thank you.
Just wanted to acknowledge, and anybody else on the panel want to address that question too, but also I just saw in the chat that also former political prisoner Laura Whitehorn is present. So very honored to be in your presence as well. Pierre, sorry.
Yes, one of the things I'll be brief about it that I think is very important to address is an issue of elitism. See, elitism is not just a province of, is not just the right wing that is the oligarchy that has elitism. You have a certain kind of elitism in the left. And I'll put that in quotes, the left. And unfortunately, this oligarchic mentality, you know, the forces on the right try to create division among us. And then a lot of we are product of a very racist society. And so when we go back to the black codes during slavery days, where there was a certain hierarchy in the society based on skin color or what have you, and privilege in the society, even among the oppressed. What I've seen in the left, generally, if I want to use that term, but in quotes, is a kind of elitism whereby some people are disregarded and put aside as second class or secondary. And folks who are in the struggle for their livelihood, and I'm glad that Javi mentioned about the indigenous folks, you know, and the whole question of sometimes the analysis is limited to only a few societies. I'm trying to make it plain here what I'm saying. It's limited to a few societies. For example, this society is ready for revolution, but unless you have read Marx, Lenin, the theories of this or that, and Javi, I'm not, disregarding Marx or Lenin. Please don't. That's not what I'm getting at. But I'm getting at the people who sometimes are referred to as in French, they'll call them guerrilleros de bistrot, meaning coffee shop guerrillas, and they are more of goofy intellectualism and disregard people who are in the struggle. Let me bring it down to the experience of our foremothers and forefathers from Haiti. And the Haitian Revolution took place way before Karl Marx was even born. But it wasn't to please some kind of guru on the left that the people took up their weapons and fought. It was because of the very nature of their oppression. That's what created their resistance and their demand to be treated as human beings. And they waging that struggle to be as human beings. They were not going to accept oppression. And so sometimes in a number of cases, instead of us working together, embracing each other's struggle, so that, hey, what happens to you, brother, over here is what's happening to me too. And I stand with you in solidarity. That's that kind of people to people, genuine. And I believe that Wednesday mentioned that the genuine love for each other, as Che Guevara would say, and also Brother George Jackson has quoted several times, that is missing a lot too many times. It's as if in the hierarchy, there is some guru that decides, or a group of gurus, well, this struggle is worth supporting, this struggle is not worth talking about. And this is insane. You see, we have to address those issues that minimize human beings to that extent within our own ranks, and challenge that and fight against this type of elitism within our own movement, so that we can break down those barriers and embrace each other in love and solidarity, so we can defeat the enemy that's trying to divide us with those kind of goofy intellectualism nonsense and all of that stuff. So I'll stop right there.
Cultural imperialism.
Thank you.
I just want to cast it out there for everyone. Cultural imperialism, we need to characterize these forms of, of oppression.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, that actually leads to a question that comes a little bit later on in the sequence. But I think, when one of the problems facing many people today, especially young people, it's like, what is the future? It's like there's no program, positive vision of the future that's articulated, right? That's why zombie movies are so popular. But so basically, like, the question here is, when you envision a better society, right? What does that look like? What comes to mind? Because unless we have that, what are we fighting for, except for fighting against? Really? Not an easy one per se, but
I mean, I don't know if Comrade Seth is listening in right at this very moment, but someone asked a couple guests, and I want you to really listen to the story, and I'll be really brief. A couple guests came to our cultural center, which is, I ain't gonna try to lie. I'm from that community. It's a snow blizzard. I'm my family integrated in Sonoma Valley, so we maybe parts of us are now dominating that place. But when I was there, and it still stays that way. So here we are in the cultural center, and I brought two guests from Manchester, two people from the reservation, a couple brothers worked at Forest, and that question was asked. And they answered, "We'll come to the res and I'll show you," right? Well, what does that look like? It looks like socialism. You know what I'm saying? And that didn't make any sense to anyone. So you see, it really is the answer, though. Harvey pitched it really well, and I'm really, but Seth was there, and that question we accommodate that question. By the way, we bring guests in that you've never met, and you're on the traditional land, and then you jump down their throat or in disbelief with the answer. And we could get very theoretical about it. It's basically have a less carceral care system of safety, and the community needs to be engaged, right? And food sovereignty, and it just goes on and on. All those beautiful, the vernacular that you all are graced with today was words and ways of life that people died for. So, but yeah, come to the res or investigate what land-based cultures, how we've lived so long. As a matter of fact, we're guaranteed that you're going to live. As indigenous people we're guaranteed, people. You just need to, I don't know how to be more, I'm pretty beat up. I've just had a real hard time with a couple folks, but I know why I have students that are not, could be my grandchildren, because I am their respite. I can talk about the traditional trade routes that we share. I could talk about how I'm Chumash from the north and they're my siblings and why. And I can talk about how that was silenced by a very, very punitive system. So we can, what Pierre just brought up on colorization, it really is happening all over again in campus. All of the framework to examine what we do in Latinidad with light, dark, class, imperialism is being returned. Everything is being dismantled. We have to pay attention because those frameworks are racist. They're based on U.S. census and all of the things that we seem to be embracing right now. So yes, tactically we need to be quite beyond aware and beyond conscious. We have to be responsive and prepared. And I do. I'm about the students, and I get debate, and I know I get side-eyed, but I've got a young person that's gone from the state capitol to the White House, and he's Chicano from Lodi, and he's been drenched as an intern into immigration law, and everything he's presented wherever he's been, he's gotten from our seminar has been enacted, I should say. That is for Shaka to hear. That's the infrastructure that we bravely go into. And don't do what we did before. We're not raising a bunch of, we're raising real revolutionaries that have the balls to go into the system, at least for a moment, and know exactly what they need to do.
Thank you. So I've got we have about,
I think, was Pierre trying to jump in on the question?
Well, yeah, so I'll just say that I think I've been told we have about 5 minutes or so. Yeah. So yeah, Wednesday.
Yeah, kind of. My understanding of this question is it makes me thinking about what we said before about discontinuity, about the struggle intergenerationally, and it's definitely part of the problem is the commitment and also how some students are not like aware and realize the political situation right now that happening right now around them. But it's also the accessibility is, I feel like, a major problem about how to make the student involved in the struggle, and also how to make them realize the connection between different struggle. Because I feel like it's easier for people to involve with like the Palestine struggle because it's so obvious, genocide and all that is so it's happening right now and so obvious. But it will be harder for them to are involved with struggle like political prisoner and all that, and then see the connection between the political prisoner struggle and the Palestinian struggle. So I feel like that's the part of the problem. And also about building something we are fight for is harder than to realize what like our enemy is that I feel like we can like pursue all those like specific detail about what kind of wars we want to build in the future in like without actually like practicing.
They sent me a thing. Okay, Wednesday.
Yeah, without actually practice and then doing like actual word about it. But it's always like we can perfect and also slowly construct what we want to be in, like, and what we want to build in the future while we doing those like practical work, and then reflect on what we have done and reflect on what we have learned. Yeah.
Pierre, did you?
No, in terms of what people are fighting for, I'll say from where I'm at, from the experience from the struggle in Haiti, what our people are fighting for basic human dignity, the right to have the right to good schooling, access to school education, the right to eat, the right to the rights that are expressed in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the right to shelter, the right to have so that the mineral resources, the richness of the earth belong to everyone and are shared among everybody in the society, so that there is nobody who has too much and one has none. It's basic dignity in all of what it means. And really, the justice, there must be justice in the society. Those are the things that are driving the struggle of our people. When I said our sisters and brothers in Haiti, right now, that's what they are demanding. And I think when I look at different struggles going on in many parts of the world, really it boils down to the same demands, basically, equality, justice, and freedom, freedom from what? Freedom from hunger. And so those are the things. And when we keep it plain, then people can relate to that and we can relate more to each other. Otherwise, we get into all of this very, things that are so it doesn't connect really with the individuals, the individual person who's out there dealing with everyday life, including myself.
Right, yeah. I guess no revolution has happened because a certain percentage of the population has been won over to one idea, right? Revolutions happen because people have these fundamental demands, which are really the base building ground for a united front. So with that, I did of course ask Shaka if he wanted to say anything. He said he felt like he's spoken enough. So he did want me to thank everybody for coming today, the panelists, all the participants, and really encourage everybody to come again tomorrow at 9 a.m. if you're on the West Coast.
10 a.m. 10 a.m.
1 p.m. if you're on the East Coast, and somewhere in between if you're somewhere in between. Sorry for my East-West hegemonic time conception of time. And the recordings will be available, and some links and resources have been shared that will be assembled and collated. And then Seth is posting a form for people to fill out if you would like to stay involved in this effort, which, you know, doesn't seek to replace anything, or you know, there's networks that exist, you know, there's organizations and coalitions, but really we're trying to build something that, you know, is focusing on political prisoners and the inside outside, rebuilding that, and anti-imperialism by bringing in and coordinating with other existing organizations. So with that, thank you everybody for a wonderful discussion, and a great diversity of thought, as well as from perspectives and sort of you know, forms of knowledge and ways of communicating that knowledge. It was very enlightening for me personally, and it was recorded at some point in time. So
yes, we have it recorded, and we'll send a recording out to everybody who registered who came. You know, and but do fill out the little link in the chat if you'd like to. We would like to. Shaka would like to do a follow-up meeting with people that would work. This kind of front around political prisoners and imperialism could work in, like as Derek was saying, in tandem with groups like the People and many other organizations, the PSL, etc. So Haiti Action Committee, you know, you name it, Palestinian Youth Movement. But yeah, thank you so much, everybody.
All right. Thank you. Free the land, all power to the people.
I'm part of the people.